Fun fact, orthotolidine turns blue in the presence of blood.
So, like a gender reveal, but with devastating results.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Forensic Fails, Season 1, Episode 1, The Disappearance of Helle Crafts.
Don't forget that if you are enjoying this podcast, please be sure to follow and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a 5-star review, tell a friend. It'll not only help ensure that you don't miss an episode, but it'll also help ensure that others will find our show too.
And as we get started, we'll be adding a Patreon feature, more details to come. But there will be things like our hilarious pre-pod pod, bonus episodes, early and ad-free episodes, and much, much more. So stay tuned. So welcome, everyone, to our first episode. Kristen, we finally did this. We're here.
I know. I'm very excited. I feel like we've been planning this forever and finally got to make it happen.
I know. We've been talking about this a long time. It's been a long time in the making. Yes. I've been a true crime, it sounds weird saying aficionado, but I do enjoy consuming true crime content. Mm-hmm. You have enjoyed it, I think, even longer than I, and during COVID when I started consuming some true crime podcasts. And I think I was mostly listening to, episodes of Dateline. I was asking you for recommendations, and you recommended some true crime documentary recap style podcasts, basically. And when I started listening to those, I was like, man, we could do that. But we needed to find our niche.
Yes.
And a few weeks ago, I said, hey, did you ever watch Forensic Files?
And my reaction was that show from the 90s that always seemed to be on in the background, but I never really paid attention to. Kind of, yeah.
Yes, I'm like, you got to pay attention to it, because honestly, I kind of have it playing on the background here on Pluto as my sort of like comfort watching, mindless entertainment. And I think this would make some pretty good fodder for a podcast.
So I checked it out and I started watching, and I was immediately hooked, and I texted Brian. I just was basically like, yeah, I'm in.
So here we are. The great thing too is that you can stream all episodes for free on Tubi, not an ad, but should be. You can also search each episode on YouTube. There's a Film Rise True Crime channel. Our goal is to bring this to you weekly, have some guests from time to time. And, we really do hope that you all enjoy. And I think we're going to be here a while, Kristen, right? Because I think we did the math. We have a lot of seasons and episodes.
Something like 460 episodes. So not a math person, but by my calculations in my head, your youngest child should be a grandfather by the time we get through them all.
Yeah, I think so. Kristen and I have known each other since high school, which is how many years ago is that?
Well, if you want what my brain thinks, like 2 months ago.
Correct.
But if you go by the actual dates, like 35 years.
Yeah, which is wild. And ironically, we knew each other from a thing called Forensics Club.
Yes.
Which had nothing to do with forensic science, but rather it was forensic speaking, which was a variety of public speaking categories. I did prose and poetry. I think you did dramatic duos.
Dramatic
right?
duo,
Yep.
yes.
And ironically also, the coach of the Forensic Speaking Club was a science teacher who would totally be into this content right now. And I think
she would love it.
We need to get her as a guest one of these days because A, she would be into the science, and B, she's freaking hilarious and awesome. And I
One of the
actually,
best teachers I've ever had.
yeah, and a big part of this podcast, I mean, basically, we're going to be recapping the episodes. Um, you're going to kind of drive the recap. I'll be peppering him with color commentary. I'm going to do a deep dive on some of the science, but even though I never had her as a teacher, actually, I knew of her teaching style, which was very much about, kind of like you're just making difficult concepts really easy and very memorable. And I really am trying to actually emulate that when I do my deep dive. So I'm actually
I love that.
channeling my inner forensic
Coach. I love that.
Yeah. So with that, I think we're ready to get started, don't you?
I think so too.
All right, so let's dive right in. With one note I do want to make though,
Yes.
because I do know that I think true crime can be a little bit of a controversial genre because in essence it's an industry that relies on crime.
Right.
In an ideal world, there would be no crime. We wouldn't be doing this. The reality is that these documentaries and these shows are being made. However, first and foremost, even though we will be, having some fun as we do this, never at the expense of the victims or their families.
Right.
It really is more about some of the absurdity of the show and how it's filmed. Having a little fun with some of the kind of ancillary characters in these episodes. And honestly, I kind of don't mind having a little fun at the expense of the perpetrators, especially if they truly are guilty.
Well, I look at it as if you commit a crime and are found guilty, I just consider it open season on you.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have no sympathy in that area, but for the victims and their families, that's where it becomes a very sensitive thing because, we look at it, we see it on TV, we haven't lived through it, but in our own worlds, everybody has lived through their own trauma, loss,
Exactly.
and, I can only imagine it becoming newspaper fodder.
Yeah.
So, yes, the respect for the families themselves, but the criminals, sorry.
Right. But if you ever feel that we are not being true to that, call us out on it.
Yes.
And you can email us at forensicfailspod@gmail.com.
Yes.
All right. And now we're really ready.
We are.
All right. Take it away, my friend.
All right, here we go. Forensic Files, Season 1, Episode 1, The Disappearance of Helle Crafts. Helle Crafts was a Danish flight attendant who lived in Newtown, Connecticut with her family. She disappeared on November 18th, 1986. The first episode of Forensic Files, which covers her story, aired in 1996. So a little background before we get into it. Helle believed that her husband, Richard, who henceforth shall be known as Dick, was cheating on her. She hired a private investigator, Keith Mayo, to investigate the situation. There were also allegations of abuse that came from the narrator of the show. Nobody spoken to in the show mentioned the abuse. Nothing was ever substantiated throughout the course of the show either. So I do want to just throw that out there. We open our show with a reenactment, and it's a black and white scene of two people in a car, which looks like it could have been filmed at any diner on Route 17 North in Paramus, New Jersey.
Yeah, and I think it's only fair here to let the listeners know that we are 100% Jersey through and through. We both love a good diner. I know the rest of the country also has diners, but I feel like it's also a lot of like things like Denny's and Waffle Houses. But we here in New Jersey take our locally owned mom and pop diners very, very seriously.
Absolutely. If you haven't had disco fries at 2 a.m. after a concert in the Meadowlands, are you really living?
No, you absolutely have not even lived. And trust us, don't ask us what disco fries are. Google it, and when you come to New Jersey, just come actually for the disco fries.
Yes.
But this diner was not advertising their disco fries. On the
Mm.
sign, I noticed that they had a prime rib special, in case you were interested. I
Good to know.
also noticed that it was torrentially pouring rain in this
Yes, I noticed
scene.
that too.
It was, I mean, they really went crazy with the rain special effects. However, when she entered that car, she was not a drop of water was on her hair or on her windbreaker. So it was
I too
magical.
noticed that, and I was curious as to what magic spell she concocted to keep her hair dry, because at the mere mention of rain, my hair expands to epic proportions. It
Yeah.
is, but she pops in that car looking, fresh as a daisy. So our girl Hella meets with her PI, and he has photographic proof that her husband is indeed having an affair. A few days after that, she disappears. So the first person we meet in the 1996 timeline is Hella's divorce attorney. She claims that Hella met with her about filing for divorce. Hella and Dick were married 12 years. They had 3 children. She was a flight attendant, and he was a pilot as well as as they refer to it on the show, part-time cop.
Yeah. And I have 2 notes here. First of all, we went right away. He is never referred to in the episode as Dick. It's always Richard. But I don't know if we just decided we are just gonna just call him Dick.
Because he is.
Yeah, for a variety of reasons.
Yes.
The second note too is part-time cops. I had no idea part-time cops were a thing until this episode.
I did not either. And me being me with my love of research, looked it up because,
Okay.
of course, I did. And they are not referred to as part-time cops in the real world. They are referred to as auxiliary police.
Okay.
Auxiliary police are basically volunteer community members, and they act as that link between the public and the full-time police officers. They do receive specialized training, but their function is primarily to support local law enforcement by performing non-enforcement, non-hazardous tasks. So they basically patrol, they assist with traffic, crowd control during emergency situations, things like community functions, special events. The NYPD actually has a huge auxiliary police section, and you would see them at like the St. Patrick's Day parade doing crowd control and things like that. They're not really brought in for like major crime
Yeah. That makes
things.
sense.
They're there mainly to help with the more basic crowd control functions.
Got it.
And it is, in most communities, a volunteer kind of a situation.
So everyone describes Dick, as very cold, having a cold stare. And honestly, can't you just see it in the pics? They shared pics of him, and he really does have these really cold, dead eyes. I don't usually notice eyes that much, but they really are cold eyes.
Yeah, he's the kind of man where if I approached him or he approached me or I saw him on the street, I would, you know, basically run the other way.
Yeah. And I would also cover your drink. Even if you didn't have a drink, just cover it.
He doesn't exactly give out the warm, fuzzy, friendly vibe.
No, not so much.
So Hella files for divorce. And after she files for divorce, she tells her friends that if anything happens to her, not to think that it was an accident. And we're told this in the voiceover. And the voiceover kind of segues from our host, Peter, to the divorce attorney, who kind of picks up on the words, "It was an accident." And the lawyer goes on to say that she felt it was a very unusual thing for a client to say to her, to which I said, "Really?" Because maybe Miss Diane Anderson and I aren't really watching the same true crime shows, because I would never think that. I would be like, whoa, woman files for divorce, then she goes missing. not an accident. Look at the husband. That's not strange at all.
Of course. I mean, you always start with the partner. You start
Mm-hmm.
with the innermost circle and then expand out. But all right, I want to talk about the divorce attorney for a moment.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Diane Anderson was not what I expected of a divorce attorney.
No.
Right? Just visually. And I know one shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but let's be honest, we all do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I think divorce attorney, right? I think vicious, cutthroat barracuda, and especially in the 80s, like I'm picturing like a kind of a tight, short haircut, big shoulder pads, red power suit, right?
Yes.
Diane Anderson looks like such a sweet old lady. I mean, she looks like she's an elder at her local Presbyterian church. I think maybe that's why she thought it was such an unusual thing to say. Like, she's just so pure of heart. Like, she looks like your sweet old great aunt who would always like dig up a butterscotch disc for you in her purse every time she saw you. It's like, don't let your mother see.
She's got like a tissue tucked into her sleeve.
Oh, totally. The butterscotch disc may be a little dusty, but like it's still like you still.
It's fine. Just wash it.
You wash it. You look forward to it.
Yes.
I have no idea whether she was a good divorce attorney or not, but damn, I bet she made a mean ambrosia.
So I did a little research on our girl Diane.
Of course you did.
And of course I did. And she actually passed away. I believe it was 2012.
Oh.
And I was actually quite impressed by what I learned. She and her husband started practicing law in Danbury, Connecticut in the late 1950s.
Wow.
She was considered a trailblazer for women, which I love hearing.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's many female attorneys.
Especially in the
in that
1950s.
time. Yeah.
Exactly. And upon her passing, in the article, she was referred to as a barracuda in court.
Shut the hell
Honest
up.
to God.
You're fucking making that up right now.
I am not making it up.
God.
Barracuda in court, one of the judges referred
God.
to her as that, which I think must have been, and she was incredibly successful. She had a very high success
awesome.
rate on all her cases. And I think, my opinion, she used that sweet,
You're right.
that sweet image
Yeah.
to kind of put you at ease.
Yeah,
And then
I
she
think so.
basically like ripped you a new one. And then
I
when she
think
was done,
so.
she gave you a Werther's.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Here's your new asshole. Would you like a licorice all sort?
Exactly.
Yeah. God
But
bless you.
I loved reading that about her. I was
You know
like,
what?
you go, Diane.
I'm gonna pour one out for Diane Anderson. This is not a visual medium, but I'm pouring over my coffee mug.
So back to our story. On November 18th, 1986, Helle returns home from a flight assignment. It was an overseas assignment and was never seen again. A few days later, she misses work and her friends begin to worry, so they call the house. Dick says she's visiting her mom in Denmark because, there's obviously no way of tracking that down. And then he changes his story. He's like, oh, no, my bad. She's not in Denmark. She's on a vacation with one of her friends.
Very easy to confuse the two.
Right? I mean, visiting sick mom in Denmark, on a beach drinking margaritas. I get it mixed up all the time. So her friends go see her divorce attorney. And I'm not really quite sure how attorney-client privilege falls into play here when there's a missing person involved. But Diane also seems like a very by-the-book kind of gal. So maybe she was just like a person to listen to.
Yeah.
And Diane then contacts the private investigator.
So the PI, this is Keith Mayo, and we see his agency's door, and I'm so stupid. I thought it was the May Detective Agency, but I didn't realize that the magnifying glass on the door made the letter O. So clever, Keith. Very clever. Also, the reenactment actor version of Keith we saw in the opening looked absolutely nothing like the real Keith whatsoever. So I really feel like the reenactments on the show are going to be the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Keith contacts the police, and the police decide at the moment this isn't really something that they're going to further explore.
Yeah, and I feel like this is unfortunately somewhat predictable in missing persons cases, especially at the time. You hear a
Yes.
lot, PDs will say, you need to wait 48 hours before you file a missing persons report, or what's the big deal? Adults are allowed to go missing, which in this specific case, I don't know that makes a lot of sense to assume, given kind of what a doting mother she was to her children.
Exactly. She had 3 school-age children and a husband who was cheating on her
Yeah.
and had allegations of abuse. But again, we have to keep in mind it is 1986. It was a totally different world than it is today. And adults are allowed to just disappear
Yeah.
without, worry. But again, we've also learned from this. And in this day and age now, a missing adult is taken a lot more seriously than it was back in 1986. There is more of a urgent look into kind of a thing that
Mm-hmm.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also wondering why all these extra steps. If the friends were concerned, why not just go directly to the police? Why take all these extra steps to get to the cops? But that's what they did. This is how it plays out. And Keith Mayo decides he is now going to solve this. And his first step is to interview the nanny, because Dick and Hella have a nanny to take care of their 3 children based on their jobs, which keeps them out of the home for extended periods of time. He also records the interview, and I am willing to bet everything I have in the bank that it was one of those ginormous 80s camcorders that you hauled around on your shoulder, basically the size of a small continent with a big microphone on it. And the nanny in the interview is talking with Keith and mentions there is a big black spot on the carpet of the master bedroom.
Yeah, not a good sign. Speaking of those camcorders, honestly, we got one of those in the 80s, and I honestly thought at that point, we had made it. That meant we were wealthy. We were not, but I just assumed that meant we're like Robin Leach. We're like lifestyles of the rich and the famous. Lifestyles of the rich and the famous up in here.
So there's this big black stain on the master bedroom, which Dick decides needs replacing. And he rips up the carpet in the master bedroom himself. And I ask you, how many husbands do you know that would just rip out the carpet without telling the wife, or even having a conversation about what kind of carpet they're going to replace with? I mean, aside from my own husband, who pretty much did whatever he wanted when it came to decorating, he just figured he'd buy it and consider I would just love it. I usually did not just love it.
Yeah, I that's not a decision that I would unilaterally make whatsoever. Also, in general, if you're going to get new carpet, the carpet installers are going to rip out and take your old carpet. That's just part of the service that they provide.
Right.
Usually there's not a need for you to take it out yourself. So that right there, I think, is a little bit suspicious. Speaking
of suspicious, Dick also gets rid of a chest freezer that was in their garage. P.S. Dahmer freezers, as I refer to them,
yes,
are never a good sign. Never a good sign. True story. Sean had one in his apartment, and the first time I was there, I saw it. It was in his dining room with his rowing machine because he didn't have a table. But I saw it. He was in the kitchen. I went right over to it and opened it up. And he said, "Well, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm looking for bodies." There were no bodies. It was fine. Everything was fine. We got married. The chest freezer is currently in my basement holding about 30 gallons of chicken stock.
I think you did the right thing, though.
I did too.
Yeah.
You got to be aware.
Absolutely.
And Dick also rented a wood chipper.
A wood chipper.
A wood chipper.
Yeah.
Seems legit.
Totally. And this apparently, I think you shared a picture with me of the wood chipper. It is a huge wood chipper,
Right.
and
This
we
isn't
all,
something you can just toss in like the trunk of your car. This is like hitch it up to the
yeah,
back of your Chevy and go.
yeah, absolutely. And we also saw the receipt,
Hmm.
and it was a $260 rental in 1986, and I used the Google machine and determined that equates to about $770 in 2026. So, I mean, that's not cheap. I mean, that's a
No.
rental. So he's really invested in this. Also, they show a copy of the paperwork and several other pieces of paperwork throughout the show that shows the house's address. Now, out of respect for the current owner's privacy, I'm not going to say it here, but I, of course, Googled it. And I actually have a copy of the Zillow link if you want to open it up.
Oh,
It
I would.
is so it's in Newtown, Connecticut, which is sadly the location of the Sandy Hook school massacre. It is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house.
Oh, it's
And
adorable.
yeah, it's a really cute house. And the current value is about $645,000. That is the Zestimate, which is actually up about $7,000 from a few weeks ago when I looked at it. So the housing market is just really, really wild. I did some further digging, and it was actually sold to its current owners in 1994. And it shows the seller as none other than Richard Crafts. So it did
Hmm.
pass directly from the Crafts family to the current owners.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
that
I
was
hope they got
interesting.
a good deal on it considering they had new bedroom carpet.
There was new better carpet, and that might have been a selling feature. They may
Yes.
not have been aware of what happens at the old carpet, but
Well,
I guess they
also,
probably
I'd
do
like
now.
to note the wood chipper, the freezer, new bedding, all of this were purchased or rented during the time Hella was missing, and Dick charged all of it to his credit card.
Yeah, which first of all, I mean, what a bonehead. Second of
Right.
all, I mean, it's not like, today, right? Like everyone's doing everything on credit cards. Like no one uses cash. But at the time,
Hmm.
I mean, you did tend to use cash for a lot more. So I felt like that was just an interesting choice to use your credit card, which is obviously going to be much more traceable than using cash.
Well, we're obviously dealing with a genius here.
Totally, totally.
So the voiceover asks us, the audience, had something happened to Hella inside the house? And was her husband responsible? And I'm sitting there on my couch watching this thinking, come on, Forensic Files. Give us a little more credit. Of course, something happened
Yeah,
to
you could do
Hella
better.
inside the house. And of course, her husband was responsible. But I still let the show play out.
Yeah.
And then we are treated to another black and white reenactment. And it is the reenactment of the lie detector test that Dick is being given. And for whatever reason, Forensic Files thought it would be a great idea to surround Dick in this white cloud like aura, making him look like a cross between the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and the Michelin Man.
Yeah.
Why
So I'm
they did
glad
that,
you
I don't know.
I'm okay. So I'm really glad you noticed that too. I thought that was just me. I'm like, why are they like surrounding him with this aura, making him look like he's some angel? He's definitely no angel.
No.
Also, I thought it was interesting though that all right, angel like aura, but they did actually really were driving home how cold this guy was because
Hmm.
they make him sound like the biggest grump answering the polygrapher's questions. Did you kill your wife? No. Did you do you know your wife's whereabouts? No. Did you have anyone kill your wife? No. So he passes. And now at some point, we have to do a deep dive on the science, air quote, science of polygraphs because they are, how can I put this delicately, utter shit. So
Yes.
innocent people can fail them, guilty people can pass them. Spoiler alert, Dick passes. Um, and here's the deal with polygraphs. Like you never have to take a polygraph. So God forbid if anyone's listening and you're ever asked to take one for any reason, just say no. You do not have to do it. There's a reason why they are generally inadmissible in court. So just say no to polygraphs. Say no to hardcore drugs. Say no to polygraphs.
I will tell you straight up, without a doubt, if I was given a polygraph test, I would fail
You,
because
yeah,
I am so socially awkward and so uncomfortable speaking to people I don't know that
yeah,
my anxiety level spikes and there is no way I could pass. They could ask me, "Is your name Kristen?" And I would say yes, and I would fail
yeah, yeah. No,
because
same.
my nerves would not be able to handle something like that.
Yes, just
So,
being in the situation is going to spike your heart
yes,
rate and just make you,
absolutely.
yeah. And I'd be so cognizant of worrying that I wouldn't pass the lie detector test that I would not pass the lie detector test.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hi, Brian and Kristen, just jumping in with some breaking news relative to this episode before we drop it into our feed.
In today's episode, we discuss Dr. Henry Lee, the primary forensic investigator in this case.
And we actually just learned that Dr. Lee passed on March 27th, 2026. And we recorded this episode actually several weeks ago.
We wanted to acknowledge his contributions and his passing and offer our condolences to his family, friends, and loved ones.
And with that, back to the episode.
So we go through the lie detector test scene, and then we are introduced to the secret weapon of the whole case, forensic expert Dr. Henry Lee. This is also the point where the police finally decide that, yes, this is seriously a serious enough situation to take the case away from Keith Mayo. And I just want to point out, I find it unfortunate that Keith goes through life with the name Mayo, because that is my condiment arch enemy. And I wonder, like, what elementary school must have been like for him with the last name Mayo. The kind of
So,
teasing.
yeah, I'm sure he got teased.
Yeah.
Now, I, however, feel like, well, first of all, I forgot that you hated mayonnaise.
I hate all condiments.
You hate all forms of like
With
sandwich moisturization.
Well, first of all, I hate the word moist.
Sorry. True.
And
Most women do.
secondly, yes, I with the exception of ketchup,
Okay.
I prefer nothing. I like
Okay.
my food to taste like the food itself. I don't need anything bonus on it.
Ugh.
Mayonnaise, mustard, relish.
Hot
No,
sauce.
thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
I love condiments. I love mayo. And I think mayo is actually a great name for a detective. I really feel like we need to add him to Clue. I think he would fit right in with Colonel Mustard. Like, can't you see it? So it was Colonel Mustard in the library with the candlestick, foiled by Detective Mayo, right? But seriously, like now going back to Dr. Lee though, I mean, we do have to say that Dr. Lee, the reason why we had that, like, like, oh wow, Dr. Lee is a pretty big deal in the world of forensics. So if you're
Yes.
active in the true crime community, you've undoubtedly seen Dr. Lee before.
Yes, Dr. Lee is so prolific. He has been called, quote, the godfather of forensic science, which I guess in the medical world is the equivalent of the godfather of soul. And when I heard him being referred to as the godfather of science, I imagined him coming into a crime scene dressed like James Brown with a man behind him holding a cape. And that was all I could think of for 30 seconds. And I had a good giggle over it.
And
But
I was thinking more like Sicilian mafioso. He's neither of those things, by the way.
he is not. No. He's a lovely man, and his
Yes.
career spans decades. He has been investigating criminal cases all over the world. He worked on the JonBenet Ramsey case, the O.J. Simpson case, Lacey Peterson, and he was a blood spatter consultant for the Kathleen Peterson murder, which some people might be more familiar with if I refer to it as the staircase murder,
Mhm.
based on the Netflix docuseries. He was involved in the early days of the Kaylee Anthony case. But with the sweets of his case, there are the sours, as with most careers. In 2007, he was accused of either, quote, hiding or destroying evidence from the Phil Spector case. However, that was dismissed in court. And in 2023, he was named in a lawsuit for fabricating evidence that led to a 30-year prison sentence for two teenagers, Sean Henning and Ralph Birch. The two teenagers had their conviction overturned, and they were eventually cleared of the crime.
All right. You know what that sound means, don't you, Kristen?
I do.
All right. Grab that lab coat, strap on those goggles. It's time to step into the forensics lab. So here is where we do a little bit of a deep dive on the science. So we're going to talk a lot about blood. And blood is really where Dr. Lee starts his investigation. And this was really important for helping to establish that Helle was likely murdered in the house. But I feel like the show goes over this kind of quickly. So for this week's deep dive on forensic science, I want to actually break down all of the blood tests that Dr. Lee did. So Dr. Lee goes to the house and makes a host of discoveries. So first, on the Crafts mattress, Dr. Lee finds some stains, okay? So what he does with these stains is he reaches for something called orthotolidine, or OTO for short. And OTO is a chemical used to screen for blood. So what he does is he takes some of the stained mattress fibers, back to the lab, applies this OTO solution, then adds hydrogen peroxide and watches. And almost instantly, the solution turns bright blue, indicating that the fiber indeed has blood on it. Now, they kind of left it at that, but I was really wanted to understand, well, why does the color blue mean it's blood? Like, what's happening here? So, blood, as you know, contains hemoglobin, right? So hemoglobin's the protein that carries oxygen, that oxygenates all of the cells in our body, okay? Now, diving deeper into hemoglobin contains iron, okay? And iron acts as a catalyst, okay? So it can help speed up certain chemical reactions. So when hydrogen peroxide hits a stain that contains blood, the iron helps release oxygen from the hydrogen peroxide, okay? And that oxygen then oxidizes the orthotolidine, flipping it from clear to blue, okay? And so, and oxygen does a lot of stuff, actually, that, when you think of oxidation actually has a lot of color changing in nature, okay? Right. So oxidation just means oxygen shows up and does something. So like rust is oxidation, right? An apple turning brown is oxidation. Avocado, like turning brown, that's also oxidation. So that's what's called a presumptive test, okay? It doesn't tell you whose blood it is or even prove that it's human. It just says that it is blood. We need to dive a little bit further. Also want to note that they find some towels in the bathroom that had been washed and were drying out. Dr. Lee also used OTO on these, and guess what? They lit up blue, indicating that they had been indeed used to clean up blood. Now, the next thing, so I said they don't know it's human at this point, so now they need to find out if it was human. So the next thing they did was a species test, but again, they glossed over it really quickly. So this is actually super interesting. 1986, they really didn't have DNA testing, right? It really wasn't a thing. So what they did was they did this test called a precipitin test. So here's how it works. So a precipitin is a special kind of antibody, okay? And it's a protein that is made to specifically recognize human blood. So scientists would inject human blood proteins into a rabbit, and the rabbit's immune system would produce these antibodies designed to bind only to human blood, okay? So basically, you're injecting these rabbits with these human blood proteins. The rabbits' bodies are like, what the hell? We don't recognize these. We're going to produce antibodies to attack them, okay? And then they would extract these antibodies, okay, and use it in the test. So if the sample was blood, the precipitant antibodies would latch onto it and form a visible clump or cloudiness because, again, these antibodies were designed to attack human blood. If it wasn't human blood, nothing happens, okay? Think of it like a lock and key. The antibodies are the lock, the human blood is the key, and when it fits, boom, you see the result. So now we know it's human. Could it be Helle's? Again, 1986, no DNA. They relied very heavily on blood typing to narrow things down, okay? Mm-hmm. So blood type we're all familiar with. We hear of like, there's A, B, AB, O. There's also positive and negative. We're not going to talk about that. But basically, blood type A means the blood cells have A markers. So these markers are almost like little like name tags on the cells. B means they have B markers. AB blood means you have cells that have both A and B markers. And type O blood, think of it like 0, has 0 markers on it, okay? So in the lab, investigators would mix the unknown blood with chemicals that were known to interact with A markers and with B markers. Mm-hmm. And you would see clumping of the blood sample when you had a match, okay? So type A blood would only clump with an anti-A solution. Type B would only clump with an anti-B solution. Now, again, AB blood has A and B markers, so it'll clump with both solutions, like either one you apply, it's going to react with. And type O, 0 markers, so it doesn't clump with either solution. So Helle's blood didn't clump with any of the solutions, meaning it was type O. Now, that was the same type as Helle, so that says, okay, it could be Helle's. 2 problems. It's the most common blood type in the U.S. About 45% of people have it. So it doesn't conclusively tell us that the blood was from Helle, but it could be. Another thing that I would have liked to have known is what were the blood types of the other people in the household.
Right.
Now, the next thing that Dr. Lee points out is they have to determine if it was circulation blood or just menstrual blood. So now, there was no real gold standard that was used. So what they did was there was a variety of ways that they could determine this. First, they could look at it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So menstrual blood often has tiny clots or tissue bits, while regular circulation blood is going to be smooth. Mm-hmm. They could look under a microscope. Menstrual blood has extra uterine cells, which obviously circulation blood wouldn't have. There are certain proteins that are more common in menstrual blood. So that's another test that they could have done. And a big part of it was context, right? Where the stain was, how much there was, and what else was happening in the scene helped investigators figure it out. So basically, it was a mix of science and common sense. Now, I don't know what Dr. Lee used, but from a context standpoint, the blood was on the side of the mattress. You wouldn't likely see menstrual blood there. It was like by the handles, right? Menstrual blood would more commonly be seen on the top of the mattress and more towards the center or upper third of the mattress, near where the pelvic region would ordinarily be. So that was a good clue that it could be Helle's, and it was likely circulation blood and not menstrual blood.
Yeah. Yeah, I was questioning that too when he brought up, well, was it menstrual blood? And when I saw where on the mattress it was, I was thinking, that seems almost impossible, but okay, you're the doctor and I'm not.
Yeah, so I thought of one possible scenario in which it could be menstrual blood, okay? Hear me out. Okay? I don't think this applies to them, but let's just say you're a nudist.
Okay.
Right? You don't really care for clothes that much, right? And you decide, you know what? I haven't been sleeping well lately. Maybe I should flip my mattress. So what if you flip the mattress and it's that special time of the month? Maybe then. But I don't say no. think it's likely. Yeah.
Very unlikely.
Yeah. So that is this week's deep dive on the science of blood testing in 1986.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me into the lab with you.
You're welcome. Watch your head on the way out, please.
Thank you.
All right.
So Dr. Lee, we're back with Dr. Lee, and he is shown holding this big, giant, comically giant magnifying glass while examining a Petri dish, which is another great way to let us know that he's a big deal.
Yep.
And I see this scene and I'm curious as to where his deerstalker hat is because he's, throwing off Sherlock vibes. And I'm also curious as to who decided to use the world's biggest magnifying glass to examine a petri dish. I'm not a scientist, nor do I play one on TV, but I would think a microscope would be a better tool here to use when it comes to petri dishes. But again, what do I know? Not a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the graphics.
Okay. These graphics were rough. It was like all blocky with huge pixels. It was like Minecraft, but for brutal murders.
I'm actually wondering if the creators of Minecraft happened to come upon an episode of Forensic Files, high as kites, 2 bags of Funyuns in, and thought to themselves, dude, this is what we need to do. Let's make a game based on what we're seeing here.
Dude, we can make like $1 million.
And they did.
Yes. A few more than that, probably.
Yes. So according to Dr. Lee, he lets us know that, quote, a human body cannot just vanish into the air.
Brilliant.
It's why he's the expert.
Mm-hmm.
And we are told that a few days after Helle disappeared, it snowed. And a plow driver happens to see a man with a wood chipper on a bridge at 3:30 a.m. as he is conducting his plow route.
Yeah.
Because why not? I mean, we all know bridges are notorious for being full of trees that need to be wood chipped away at 3:30 a.m. in the snow.
In the snow. And standing next to the wood chipper is a man, spoiler alert, it's Dickie, wearing a bright orange poncho.
Well, he didn't want to be hit by a plow.
Yeah, safety first.
Safety first.
Safety first.
Safety first. Stay stupid, Dick.
Yep.
So Mr. Plow, not his real name, sees this again in another location on another bridge about an hour later. Again, why not? Also, I don't know where Mr. Plow comes from. He just kind of pops into the story all of a sudden. And, but I guess they decide it's important. They start examining the area because Mr. Plow decided, you know what? Maybe it is a little strange to see some dude in a bright orange poncho at 3:30 in the morning on 2 different bridges using a wood chipper in the snow.
A tad.
I looked him up. His name is Joseph Hine. He reported the wood chipper party to the police after the investigation began and the search was on. So obviously he realized, this might be relevant to what's going on. So good for him. Concerned citizen. We need more of those. So while they're examining, they find an envelope with Helle's name and address on it. And all I could think of is the envelope from Alice's restaurant under the 7 tons of garbage. And I'm very impressed with that.
Yeah. And it's not even Thanksgiving. And we have an Alice's restaurant reference.
There's always time for Alice's restaurant in my world.
All right. Well, what I was amazed at was that envelope stayed so intact.
Right.
Snow, salt, wood chipper.
Wood chipper.
Yeah.
So we have one of our talking heads in the show who says, I really didn't think too much about how the wood chipper came into play at that point until we started finding a lot of hair, to which I said, ew.
Ugh, not good.
Yeah, that's never a good sign. So we have an on-screen graphic of a magnifying glass, which is Forensic Files' secret code for important information coming your way. Guess what, listeners? They found a fingernail. Find a fingernail. They also find a piece of a chainsaw with a missing serial number. And honest to God, I don't know much about big power tools. I didn't know chainsaws had serial numbers. I didn't know you could actually dismember a chainsaw, but you learn something new every day.
Well, and Peter Thomas, our narrator, decides to read us the serial number. And he reads the serial number so slowly and soothingly. 5, 9, 2, 1, 6, 116. He is reading it as if we all need to write it down. Like, I mean, I literally was about to grab like a pen and paper, thinking like, my God, do I need to know this? Maybe, like I don't know. Maybe I'm going to be quizzed on it later. Like,
Do you know what it made me think of immediately?
What?
Ralphie writing down the secret code in A Christmas Story.
Oh, yes.
Drink
For the
your
Orphan
Ovaltine.
Annie. Yeah. Exactly. Drink more Ovaltine. Yeah. But I will say, okay, I'm not going to give Dick credit for a lot of things, but I am really impressed that he actually sent in the warranty form, because I am notorious for never sending in those registration cards.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done that in my life.
Yeah, occasionally. I mean, I do it now more because so much is just QR codes and you could just very easily do it. But yeah, when you had to actually fill out paperwork, no. And I'm also amazed that the company actually like had it and was able to, access it so quickly. So kudos to the I think it's still STIHL, power tool company for keeping such meticulous warranty records. Not a NAD, but should be.
I was also impressed with that, especially because they were paper and not computerized.
Exactly.
I recently had to get my records from my dermatology office that I left 2 years ago, and they had no record of me. And I was a patient there for 20 years.
That's unreal.
I know. So our story, it's starting to build momentum. And at this point, it's become a news story, not just locally, but tabloid news stories. News shows are starting to show up and cover it, including my all-time favorite tabloid news show, A Current Affair.
Yeah. That unlocked so many memories.
I loved A Current Affair, which, if you don't know, was hosted by Maury Povich before he started letting the world know who the baby daddies are.
Yep.
And I truly believe that watching A Current Affair was what triggered and spawned my love of true crime.
Yeah.
America's Most Wanted.
Yeah. Honestly, I think both of those would be good. When we get our Patreon up and running, we should do some bonus episodes if we could find some of those.
Yes. Actually, A Current Affair, you can watch episodes on YouTube.
Perfect.
Have I done it? Yes, I have.
Guilty.
And then, after all this, we meet H. Wayne Carver, MD, who is the chief medical examiner. And he's an important guy. You want to know how I know he's an important guy?
Tell me.
He's wearing tinted aviator eyeglasses. And I don't mean like Maverick Top Gun sunglasses. I'm talking those gold-rimmed tinted aviators with like that dirty yellowy orange tint to the lenses. You know he's a big deal. Also,
or a serial killer.
Or a serial killer.
Yeah.
He also looks bored as fuck. And it's almost like he's gracing us with his presence and throwing us a bone for being here today. So thanks for that, Wayne.
Appreciate it.
And according to Wayne, he tells us that they need a piece of paper from me that says somebody's dead. Thanks, dude. Thanks for clearing up your job description.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have an anthropologist talking, and we see the fingernail, which, ew. And they go from the anthropologist talking to letting us know that they are going to shoot a pig through a wood chipper. And they do. And we get an actual shot of all these people pawing through what I can only describe as ground spam on the floor.
Yeah. Now, two things I never need to see again is one, that fingernail, which they just showed so many times, and two, a frozen pig being shot through a wood chipper. But apparently the skin and bones of a pig are actually very similar to us humans.
Yes.
So they use it to sort of confirm whether or not the fragments that they're finding at the scene are consistent with a frozen body going through a wood chipper. But it's gross.
It is gross. But this is actually something I actually knew because they did something very similar on an early episode of CSI. So when they did mention that they were going to be shooting a pig, and they really could have phrased that better.
Yeah.
They really could have
Shooting a
done a better
pig.
job there. But when they
Yes.
said they were going to shoot a pig through the wood chipper, I thought to myself, oh, Gil Grissom did this too.
Hmm.
Not a wood chipper, but similar. So that was delightful. And Wayne lets us know, and seriously, this is a direct quote. Basically, we didn't know if she was dead before she went into the wood chipper, but we certainly knew she was dead afterwards. We know he knows this shit because, he's a doctor. And I'm so glad he cleared that up for us.
Yes, thank you.
So they find some bone fragments and they use liquid nitrogen to freeze these bone fragments and grind them up. And I hear liquid nitrogen. All I could think of is Real Genius when Val Kilmer slices a very thin piece of frozen liquid nitrogen and he uses it as a coin in a coffee vending machine. And I love Val Kilmer, so that made me happy.
I like Val Kilmer. Have never seen Real Genius.
Please take the time and watch it.
Okay, I'm gonna write a note for myself.
It really is great.
Okay.
It's a good one to watch with the boys.
All right, cool.
So we meet Dr. Carolus. I may be saying that wrong.
I think Carolus. Yeah, I think Carolus.
Carolus.
His family may have owned one of those diners in Route 17 or
He might.
in Paramus.
He might. So we meet Dr. Carolus. He is a forensic dentist. I did not know there were forensic dentists. I know that now.
Yeah.
He spends 5 days searching the river for potential remains. And he tells us, I slipped and I fell in the brook. And all I could think of is, dude, how about a little perspective here, sir? Yes, falling into a dirty, cold body of water does indeed suck. You know what sucks more? Going through a fucking wood chipper.
True. However, his clumsiness actually helped break the case. All right?
Yes, it did.
Because he was clumsy and fell in the freaking brook, he then decides to wash his hands in the little bucket. I'm just picturing like a little child's pail. He decided to wash his hands in the little bucket he was carrying, and boom, a tooth. Right? So, and we'll have to do a deep dive at some point on dental records because I'm really fascinated by them. And also fascinated by the fact that people actually have better oral hygiene than I would have assumed. And also dentists have better records than I would have assumed. Much better than your dermatologist.
I often wonder if, it was so much easier to use dental records back then because braces weren't such
Oh.
they weren't as used as much, nowadays everybody has braces. I wore them twice in my life.
Yeah. My wife has Invisalign right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically back then, if you had bad teeth as a kid, you had bad teeth as an adult. If you had good teeth as a kid, you had good teeth as an adult kind of a situation.
Yeah.
So maybe that had something to do with it, but a deep dive in dental forensics is definitely something I'm down for.
All right.
I would also like to state that the show itself is only 15 minutes in. We are at the 15-minute point on the show, and I have been so frustrated that I might have yelled out, just call Gil Grissom and his CSI team and solve this already more than one time. I was also seriously considering a drink at this point into the show. But yes, they find a tooth and Dick is finally arrested.
Thank God.
And we are graced with a screen that now is filling up with puzzle pieces because, this was a puzzle. I see what you did there, Forensic Files. And we get another super duper reenactment using the high-tech computer graphics. And in the scene, Hella changes into her favorite blue nightshirt. They make a point of referencing it is her favorite blue nightshirt. On the screen, though, it's white. So do better, Forensic Files.
Well, okay. And they talk about this blue nightshirt, to your points, so many times.
Right.
And they made it such a big deal. Like, everyone knew that this was her favorite blue nightshirt. And I just was like, how does everyone know this was her favorite nightshirt? Like, Dick wasn't volunteering this info, so who knew? Her friends? Like, do y'all ladies get together and discuss your favorite PJs? Like, what's happening when you guys get together?
We do not. We drink cocktails, we eat junk food, and we talk about boys.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
that's how it works.
all right. But
No,
no night shirt
rarely do
discussions.
our night clothes come into conversation.
Okay, just
Yeah.
curious. Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Mm.
So we are treated to some ominous music, and I know it's ominous because I watch TV with the captions, and in parentheses it says ominous music. And we are treated back to another Oregon Trail graphic reenactment. We see graphic
Oof.
Dick beating his wife with a police flashlight, and they make a point to say it's a police flashlight, which I guess is from his auxiliary cop work. And then we see him carrying her body down to the Dahmer freezer. And I'm curious as to where that gem ended up after it disappeared.
I'm wondering about the wood chipper. Like, did they just continue to rent it out? Was it held in evidence? I mean, it's really gross. I mean, I guess the fact that the pig was frozen. Well, no, this wasn't the pig one. This was I wonder what happened to the pig one, actually. But the actual one, the body was it's still, the whole thing is really
It's just gross.
kind of disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah. I really hope those things were taken out somewhere and burnt.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to wind up at an estate sale, and my sister's probably like, ooh, a freezer.
Yeah. It came all the way from Connecticut.
Yes. And genius that he is, Dick rents a U-Haul and that wood chipper with the same credit card. So thanks for that, Dick.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, and also too, he needs to do all of this as soon as possible.
Yes.
So at daybreak, Dick takes the children and the nanny to his sister's house, saying that their mother had left earlier. So he shouts out, like, Marie, hurry up.
He's so charming.
First of all, don't be rude to Marie. She just had her night off. She got home at 2 a.m. and she must be beat. And she's probably tired of taking your shit also.
Right.
But that whole thing made no sense. Because isn't the point of having a nanny to watch the kids at home when you're both not there? I mean, I understand why he needed to get them out of the house, but I can't imagine what sort of an excuse he made up to Marie as to why they couldn't be there when it's her fucking job to watch the kids when they're not there.
Right. My takeaway points for this whole scene was, 1, be nice to people who take care of your kids.
Absolutely.
And 2, Marie, you didn't question?
Right.
Why are we going from point A to point B for me to take care of the kids?
I do hope Marie is thriving.
I do too. She deserves better.
We didn't get enough of Marie.
We didn't.
No.
So we have some final parting words from Dr. Lee. He lets us know that, and I have to say, I love his voice. I find it very soothing and comforting.
So soothing.
Right? It's like,
yeah.
I wish you would do books on tape.
Yeah.
Audiobooks.
Yeah.
So I could fall asleep at night because I
Totally.
have serious problems sleeping. So I think that would just relax me and help me fall asleep so much better. He lets us know that the key to solving this case is something called teamwork.
That was so freaking wholesome.
Wasn't it?
That warmed the cockles of my heart. I don't even know exactly where my cockles are, but they were warm.
I'd love to have dinner with him.
Oh, me too. Me too. Yeah, totally.
So the show ends, and we are treated to some on-screen text coda kind of summarizing everything that happened after the arrest. Dick is guilty. Shocker. He actually had to go through two trials because the first one ended in a mistrial. He was sentenced to 50 years. And this was the first murder conviction in Connecticut without a body, which made me incredibly sad because no closure for the family in that aspect, no body to bury or say goodbye to. Dick is still telling everybody he didn't do it. Also, Dick's a liar. Mm-hmm. He was released from prison on January 30th, 2020 due to good behavior and for holding a job in prison. After being released from prison, he was transferred into a homeless shelter for veterans. I could not find whether or not he is still alive. However, if he is still alive, he would be 86 today.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The 3 children were given to Dick's sister, Karen, who lived in Westport, Connecticut, and she raised them. And I figured they had been through enough and did not want to invade their privacy by doing a deep Google search. It's rough enough growing up without one parent, but then to find out your second parent murdered your parent
Yeah.
and grow up
Horrible.
without either one of them, I can't even imagine. Fun fact,
Yeah.
Fargo, the
You need
movie
a fun fact.
Fargo, loosely based on this case.
That's interesting because as soon as I saw wood chipper, I mean, the first thing I thought of course, was Fargo, don't you know?
Who wouldn't think of Fargo, don't you
Right?
know?
Yeah. Yeah,
They're
exactly.
synonymous.
Yeah.
But all in all, loved it, and I can't wait for the next episode.
All right. Well, so this is the part of the show where we rate the episode on a scale of 1 to 10 DNA strands.
Yes.
Based on our assessment of both the investigation and the episode itself.
Okay.
So, Kristen, for this week, why don't you give your rating first?
So I thought long and hard about this, and I am going to start off by saying, as a teacher, because that is my real world job, I am an incredibly hard grader.
Oh,
I'm a very tough grader. I always expect my students to, hit these high standards. I have very high standards for my students. I have very high standards for the murder shows I watch. I give this a 7.
okay.
I give it a 7, and my reason is I felt for the first episode, they kind of moved a little too quickly with the most important parts. This is a forensic show, and I don't know if they felt that their audience had all this background knowledge about forensic science, which this audience member does not.
Yeah.
So explanations would have been helpful, and I'm not even going to mention the graphics.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. I'm going to give this an 8 myself. Okay. So I'm not a teacher and I am a softie. I will be honest with you. But I thought it was I thought it was a strong start for the series. Just the fact that it had first I thought it was a really interesting case.
Yes, I did too.
And we had Dr. Henry Lee.
Yes.
Bonus points for Dr. Lee on episode number 1.
They really did bring in the big guns.
Really. Yeah, yeah. And also too, I felt like in fairness, the investigation actually was pretty thorough. I mean, it was, it was great. It was the fact that also that they were able to get the conviction without a body.
Yes.
And also too, like I actually find like this sort of set the stage for a lot of those things that just become forensic files lore and legends, the over-the-top reenactments and the over-the-top narration and the horrible graphics. So like the campiness factor of all of that just sort of was heartwarming. So we're pretty close though. I just gave it one strand more than you. So 8 strands of DNA. So 4 full double helixes. Well, so that's it for this episode of Forensic Fails.
Where the science was complicated, the narration was intense.
And the reenactments somehow managed to raise even more questions.
Thank you so much for listening, guys, and we'll be back next week with a new episode.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.